Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Jim, what do we got out there first off, man? We'll get into this Funny Pages movie review.
Hulk Grand Design, Monster Madness, available now wherever comic books are sold. You can pick this up, and it is time to pre-order the oversized Treasury collection of Hulk Grand Design. It'll be out in early 2023. Order that today wherever you buy books or comics. And Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive, is back in print from Image Comics, featuring 8 full-color stories written and drawn by me, and perfect for the superhero fan in your life this holiday season.
Red Room Trigger Warnings, Red Room The Antisocial Network. Both books are in stores at this moment. Each book contains 4 issues of the comic plus about 60 pages of extra stuff. Every issue is self-contained, so if you see either of these books, give it a shot. If you dig it, scoop up the other books, man, and hit up my Patreon, patreon.com/edpiskor. All of these books are up there, plus I'm serializing the next round of Red Room up there. $3 for it all. More than 300 pages worth of stuff. With that in mind, man, let's jump into things, dude. Do something a little different. The movie Funny Pages came out, and every single day, no exaggeration, 5 to a dozen people would hit us up on our various platforms, tell us that's a movie we need to see. Got hold of it, saw it. We have some thoughts, man.
Yeah, I'm surprised by the people who say that's a movie we need to see.
And why do you say that?
I was underwhelmed by it. I watched the first hour with my wife, who says her review in a nutshell is Funny Pages more like unfunny pages, and did not stick around for the full 90 minutes or so. It's fun, of course. You know, it's about a high school kid that wants to be a comic book artist. Love it. That's a really good start for me. As it progresses, I have a lot of questions. You know, it's a very, I think I said this to you, esoteric movie. You know, there's a lot of inside comics kind of talk. And as near as I can remember, every bit of that insider part was wrong. Like, it was way off, right?
Yeah.
For example, talking about a color separator in the early years of Image Comics, and we see a continuity comic, for the example.
Down to
a weird choice.
The indicia is clearly a continuity comic. When you see the back cover, there you see the ad for Crazy Man.
Yes, Crazy Man ad is in there. I think you mentioned that it looks like a Megalith comic, and I think it was. I considered diving into my back issues to see if I could find the specific page.
Little Tom Grinberg.
But it's weird to me, some of those choices, right?
Let's just say this will be spoilers abound.
Lots of spoilers.
Spoilers abound. We're not going to...
I should have warned everybody before I dropped that continuity bit.
Yeah. So spoilers abound. If you haven't seen the flick, go check it out. Then you can watch our video on the thing. But that is a little bit of the cart before the horse, because I want to get into that nerd shit. You know, like this is our revenge. Whenever you draw too many frets on a guitar, and every guitarist comes out and tells you how much you fucked up, like we'll have that piece in this video for sure. Yeah,
definitely.
Simple story. This dude, young high school kid, it's like Boy Ghost World, right? Like, it's like high school boy about to get out of school, is a very like naive, gullible kind of character. I would call him. I actually identify with that character a little bit because he's listening. If you are in a position of authority, as long as you're not his father, he's going to listen to what you have to say, right. And he's being shaped. And it made me think about when I started Hip Hop Family Tree as a perfect age for that, Jimmy, about 29, 30 years old, lived enough life where I would question things. Because I was talking with early pioneers of hip hop, and everybody invented everything. And if I was 21, I would have been like, oh, yes, sir, I will put that in the comic immediately. You know, like I would have been totally used. And this kid, you know, his high school teacher, his high school art teacher is like Michael Jordan, you know, like send this shit off to the Mad Magazine right away. Teacher dies, and he tells the kid, don't even go to college. The boy drops out of high school.
See, there's interesting pieces there already. Let's dissect the teacher.
Yes.
Don't go to college. And he's looking at the kid that's basically getting his portfolio together to submit to schools. And the teacher's looking at it, and it's like the comic stuff really strong. So already I hate this kid because he's got an art teacher who's into comics.
Yeah.
Who's open to this stuff.
And the boy draws like Johnny Ryan, goddammit.
Right, which is a big piece of my contention with the movie. But the art teacher's really supportive of the comics part.
Yeah.
And okay, that's cool, I can go with that. And then like he shows like the figure drawing stuff, and the art teacher's like, see, this doesn't look like you, there's no voice, your voice isn't here. This stuff, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, the figure drawing stuff, completely boring. And his reason to tell the kid not to go to college is because essentially you learn to do this stuff by the books. And that essentially is unlearning to do the stuff that makes you good right now.
Yeah.
Because he is good. He's Johnny Ryan good. And, Johnny Ryan, one of the artists that contributes. So it's high-level cartooning, but it's also cartooning that's very far outside of where this boy is going to go in the course of the movie.
Yeah.
But I like parts of that art teacher. Like, it's real interesting because I went to school for art, and many of my classmates ended up being art teachers because that's one of the things that you could do in the 90s with an art degree. And this teacher being sympathetic to this kid, and I imagine there are a lot of art teachers out there today that are open to comics now, with comics and graphic novels and everything being popular. So I'm down with all of that stuff. It's ballsy, let me tell you, for a teacher my wife is in education, and that teacher might lose his job for telling this kid skip college because you've got the talent and you don't want to rob yourself of that voice. But in practical terms, I think that's really interesting perspective. That's a real thing. I always say you can't unlearn to ride a bike, and that's what this is. And it can be done. Supposedly Alex Toth retaught himself composition after working as a professional for some time. But it's rare that you can unlearn something like that.
When I went to the Kubert School, like, they fashion you to be an illustration assassin, which is to say, kind of a hack. You get the job done in on time. You do kind of the bare minimum. Like, they want a good placement percentage when you get out of school. So they're going to set you up with the tools to be able to get a job. And it's up to you to rise above that, to do some things. But in order to get that job, to gain the tools to get that job, means you have to be marketable. So they have to burnish off a lot of that shit. And I think it took me a decade to unlearn 1 year's worth of that education.
Yeah, and I'm not even critical of that because they were teaching that as a trade.
Yeah,
and that trade was assembly line comics.
Totally,
and it
was beyond that because it was freelance illustration. It was more than that. Like, comics is a part of it, but certainly, like, whatever. Anyhow, did you scrutinize the bookshelves in the art?
I didn't.
In the art teacher's office, because I feel like it's all the right stuff.
Okay,
it's the Kurtzman Mad, Russ Cochran. I saw the complete Crumb comics. I think every issue, because you could tell because the spines are all fucked up. Like, the first 5 have spines where the text is like this, then the next 5 is like this, then the last bunch is like that. They did well to get Jacob Covey and team into the design part of that. I saw Humbug. So, like, the teacher had the right shit on his shelf to be saying those things. Yes. It was congruent. And that teacher as character, when he's established, it's a smart piece of storytelling because he's smoking out the window. And that's a teacher, that's your, so, like, that's already telling you that, like, this teacher is different than the rest, man, because he's got vice and all that stuff.
And that's a good piece for character because the cartoonist kid, is very anti-authority.
Yeah.
And if that teacher were just like part of the teachers, I don't think the kid connects to him. So that's a nice piece of storytelling.
Teacher takes his gear off and it's like, hey, you want to draw me? You like drawing, don't you? You want to draw me? And the kid, because he's malleable, he's at that age, man, where he's looking for guidance. He wants to do this comic thing. He's looking for guidance. And he's like, yeah, I want to draw you. And the actor's pretty good in that moment because he's like, you could tell that maybe he doesn't really feel like drawing the guy. Old teacher strips down. And because of enough art education and doing croquis drawing stuff, I actually didn't think anything untoward whatsoever in that moment. It's like, yeah, it's like a life drawing thing. Like, it's like, you look at my bulbous tits with hair on them, like all that kind of shit. But this high school art teacher getting butt-ass naked, sitting up on a desk, and then it's after that where the boy is like, yo, I got to split. Mm-hmm. He draws him a little bit. I got to split. And then the teacher, like, has second thoughts and is like, we didn't do anything weird, right? Like, you feel good? You feel cool? Like, dude starts getting guilty. And then it's like, yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, that's weird. That was a weird thing for that teacher to be doing. Gets hit head-on collision, dead. Mm-hmm. Dead. So that mentor in his life is taken out of the picture.
Maybe just in time.
The real lesson we got from the cat was don't go to college.
Right. And that is, I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm on board at this point in the movie.
Yeah.
I'm on board. This is kind of interesting. Anybody that, at least personally, like I wanted to draw comics in high school, I'd have been blown away by this teacher and this advice.
So funeral happens. The boys, because like our boy Robert is his name. He's got a friend Miles, I think, is the other cat's name, the kid with the glasses. And
who's also aspiring cartoonist.
Right. And dude, it becomes the craft versus art argument is like a piece of this movie, The
climax of the movie, we're going to come back to that. I think he says it's craft versus soul or something like that at the climax where they're yelling about what's important.
We'll save it.
But it is an important part of the movie.
And it's in here throughout. Because like the Miles character is the picture box art comics cat. And this other kid is malleable. Like he's Johnny Ryan. Also, Pete Bag does the lettering for the credits. And I was looking at the each character. He hand letters every name. It's not a font, if you were curious. So your art teacher, who I just explained the pedigree of the books on his shelf, he's dead. They're boxing up his shit. Let's go in that room and retrieve a couple of things, man. I thought that was pretty sick.
Kid breaks in to get some of that stuff and finds some of his art teacher's comics. Finds some of, I think, his own work might have been in the teacher's possession. That's
like he looks surprised when he sees like the pinups of like Miles and himself. So it makes me think that it's his teacher's art collection.
Yeah.
Unclear.
But he ends up busted by police.
Yes.
And it's kind of like a no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Not a regular burglar. They all recognize that. Let him go. But this is where we meet his parents at the police station in the aftermath of getting released. And we see the whole friction plays out there, right? The kid is done with school, period. Not planning to go beyond high school and also not planning to go back after Christmas break.
Tries to assert some independence by pushing away from his like upper middle class. That's a nice house they live in, man.
I was looking at that house and I thought it's a $600,000 or $700,000 house in Allegheny County.
Yeah.
Substantial here.
And they're in like New York-ish.
Tri-state area. Right?
Yeah, so that's a $1 million home.
It's an expensive house for sure. And the reason that's important is because that kid's going to move out.
Yeah.
In I don't buy any of it.
Oh, see, you ain't out in this world too much, man. Because these fucking I buy it. We'll get into that, man. Dude's trying to assert his independence. His dad brings a friend who's some lawyer, but the boy is like, I don't even want to use him. I'm just going to use this public defender. And it turns out like that isn't even the guy on the prosecution side is like, fuck it. Let's move on to the next thing, man. Go through all this stuff with the parents. You should write my friend a letter. He took his time out of his law practice to get you out of there. The boy's like, listen, I'm done with school. I'm moving out.
I didn't even use that dude, so maybe you should write him a letter, Pops, because he's your friend. He did you a favor.
Totally. And
that kid's a shit.
And he is. which I do like exploring the unlikable.
I'm with you on that. Because me as a senior in high school, way worse than that kid.
Sure. This director is definitely inspired by Clowes. Like he asked Dan Clowes. I don't know anything, but I think he probably asked Dan Clowes to do the art first, because it is Clowesy. Every character in this thing,
it is.
If you got cast in this movie, the director's kind of laughing at you probably, man, because you look a little weird. You got like a comb over or something.
True.
The most normal looking person is like the boy and like the father are like the two kind of like average guys. But like even the dad almost has the Ichabod Crane Buscemi thing happening.
I was trying to figure out what he's from. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Yeah, so I know about
misanthrope is the word I would describe the people in this, the worldview of this movie.
So I am real curious to see what you don't buy, because I know a lot of kids
Here's
brought
what
up
I don't
bougie.
buy. We can cut to it, right? Like he moves into an apartment, shows up at the apartment at night. This is a winter setting in Jersey, Trenton, I think, in Jersey. And the guy lets him in through several locks, and he is just the sweatiest old dirty man. Gets into this apartment that's a basement apartment, and it's just hot. I don't know what they have, their heater and stuff's running like for this whole apartment building, furnace, and then there's like another dude in his room, another old guy, That's the part I don't buy. Like, you're this little kid and you're going to go just stay with these two old sweaty dudes that are half naked. That part, and it's his rent is $350, and it's for a 1-bedroom basement apartment in Trenton.
And it's not even
not in New
one
York.
bedroom.
Yeah, and $350 is his cut. Like, your rent's over $1,000 for this place.
Right.
And with two guys that were just the creepiest dudes ever.
Straight up.
I just don't see upper middle class kid going from that to that in one night.
I do.
That is Nightmare Factory.
Yeah.
One night of sweating through, because you're wearing, I'd be wearing my parka and shit if I was going to go to sleep with those two dudes around me. Like, horrible.
It's so funny you say that, because
Also, how you drawing in that humidity?
That's for sure, man. It's gonna affect your ink line. It's gonna affect your ink line in a big way. I know people who would have easily accepted that. The $350, sure, yeah, that's I'll give you $100 maybe or something like that.
If it was $100, I would have been a little more on board of like, okay, this kid can't afford, even with a roommate, an apartment.
Yeah.
So this is what you get if you can't afford anything. But I mean, that was fun for a movie. It's like put him in this awkward situation.
He's in over his head, because like he now comes to a place where he needs to get a job, and he actually, in a roundabout way, took his dad's advice to an extent about sending a letter to his dad's friend. Well, he decides to send a letter to the public defender, another Johnny Ryan illustration of the girl. And what was fun with that piece is, like, you know what Johnny Ryan's lettering looks like? And so that's on the board. And then you see this hand, like, right from Robert, and it's clearly not
right.
Johnny Ryan. And it's so divorced from, like, the top. But, like, your wife doesn't notice that. No. You know what I mean? Like, a regular, like, moviegoer does not notice that. Also, by the way, like, when he's going through the artwork from his teacher, a lot of Rick Altergott in there.
Right.
A lot of Rick Altergott pieces. I don't know who did the portraits. I don't know if of Miles and Robert, like, because I don't think Altergott did those. They were very Clausian.
They were Clausian.
But it's not Dan Klaus. It's definitely not. Like, it doesn't have enough of that film. But so that's something I'm curious about. Kayfabers in the comments. Drop a little something. Sends the public defender this piece that he draws.
And she
of her.
really is right out of an 8-Ball comic.
Sure. Yeah. And asks, like, just has a little note on the artwork. Courtroom sketch artist, question mark. Sends it to her. Cut to public defender's office. He goes to meet her. She calls him delicious. She digs him. Not in a sexual way, just like, oh, he's a cute kid. A little give your hair a tussle, pinch your cheek kind of thing. And of course, there's no courtroom sketch artist, certainly in a public defender's at that low level kind of a thing. She puts the art to the test a little bit, calls in Joey Jerkoff straight out of a Klaus comic.
Again, totally typecast. Like, these are right off the comics pages.
Absolutely. And she gives the boy pen and paper. Draw this dude and make it real mean, she says. Make it mean. And her laugh, I love her laugh so much. You know, a bunch of middle-aged ladies who have that laugh.
Also, when she smiles, it is 2/3 gum.
It is 2/3 gum, man, and then like a little chiclet.
All the people in this movie pretty much lend themselves to being caricatured in a mean way.
Fully Klausian, like even the mom. Mm-hmm. And you could almost like plug them in to like other like things that Klaus had affiliation with. Like the mom would be one of the ladies from that Happiness movie. Mm-hmm. There was like a lady or two that like had the big ass forehead and shit like that. So no courtroom sketch artist piece. You could be like my assistant and type some quick notes. A couple of guys come in and you see what this lady has to contend with, man. A guy comes in, is shouting, going crazy, leaves. Enter Wallace, who we saw washing his feet or like taking a whole shower in the bathroom of like the court.
Yeah, we see him. Robert sees him. Robert goes to the bathroom for whatever reason. Wallace is in there, shirtless. Yeah, hobo shower. Is that
totally
what we're seeing in there? Has a hair lip. Another guy who, again, is cartoon character come to life.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable with everything.
Yeah.
Just seems like the guy who brushes up against the world in a way that is not good for anyone.
But that's a guy who could work in that 1980s, 90s comic industry, like the kind of social decorum and shit like that.
Yeah, I'm ready to start naming names of who he could be.
The rough around the edges,
right?
Like that energy exists
completely
in the antisocial, stay in my crib, like draw comics kind of landscape. He fits.
Yeah, and he's in there because he got in a fight with a pharmacist.
Yes.
His pharmacist. I guess fulfilling some kind of prescription, I think, for psychiatric meds.
I don't know. I don't know that they really get into that, but you can make your
that was my guess, but it could have been any. It could be
it's
anything.
An easy guess.
It looks like he could have some physical elements as well. And he's real unhappy with. She wants him to plead guilty, and it'll be like whatever the outcome is, and he does not want to do that. He blames the pharmacist as being like terrible and the problem, and even thinks he should just defend himself.
Right.
Like he's a wreck. Like does not seem like he should be able to take care of himself. But a grown man, like he's 40 compared, or 45, 50, I don't know, something compared to Robert. So he's an adult, has some experience, just doesn't seem like a guy you'd want to hang out with.
That's true.
Very antisocial in his behaviors, whether it's kind of no niceties in his conversations. I think Robert tries to connect with him outside of the office.
Yeah,
because he hears the guy on his resume years ago was a color separator for Image Comics.
And what does that mean? And he's like, I'm not an artist. I had no creative input. It's like an assembly line thing. Let's not all get excited, because as Robert is like typing the notes, he looks back. Oh, he worked in comics. Reminds me of some Pittsburgh energy, like growing up, like trying to find anybody with any connection to comics and just get some wisdom out of these cats.
All right. Here's my question. When is this movie set?
Why do you say that?
Because if you're 18 and you're so obsessed that I'm not going to college, I'm not even going back to high school because comics are my thing, and you don't know any of this stuff, you're screwed. Like you have no shot. You have zero shot. You're 18. You haven't figured out. You haven't looked online at like what's a comic submission, what are these jobs. Furthermore, and this is the esoteric comics part, this guy's doing Johnny Ryan comics.
Yeah.
Love Johnny Ryan comics. I think he's a great cartoonist. That dude's not looking to do an Image comic. He's also not looking to go track down like the color separator from an Image comic. Like this is a time, the early 90s, whenever Image and alternative comics would have been this far apart.
Yeah.
I hope my arm's going off the screen because it's further apart than actually my wingspan. And the idea that like this kid who's making these social commentary, mean, making fun of people, funny, all of these things standalone in comic strips, none of that fits Image ever in the history of Image, really.
Yeah.
And so for him to be like suddenly over the moon because this dude worked at Image Comics 30 years ago doing some digital component of their production, it completely changes who Robert is for me. He's not serious. He's not interested in comics. This is cosplay shit. Go build your costume and dress up as Deadpool because you're not interested in comics or making comics professionally on any level.
Here's my argument against that. At the very beginning, it's established with his like portfolio. I have to go to college. Like you go to college. My parents want me to go to college. Like you have to do that. Here's my life drawing stuff. Why? Because I have to. This dude is some connection to comics, and this kid is like willing to like involve himself in any kind of comic anything.
No, he's not. He's not making web comics. He's not connecting to anything comics related online. It's ludicrous within the last 20 years to be saying one thing and this other. And I get it. I'm not interested in seeing screens on screen. I get it that that's boring. But then set the story at a different time and use the continuity comics from the 80s.
We can't name names. Like we know people that make MIDI comics and don't really put that shit on, or like we'll say even in the 2010s they don't. Like I see direct analogs to people that like we personally know, and they're not doing that same stuff. Now I'm not going to say that they're going to get caught up with Joe Chiodo or like, you know what I mean? Like somebody who worked at Digital Chameleon and just like...
Who, in the scheme of this, that guy's 1,000 times ahead, Chiodo.
Yeah, because he's a colorist.
Right, exactly.
Like
he's painting stuff, he understands color theory.
Like what would the color separator be? It would be like you have Steve Oliff do your Akira guides, and then he gives it to like the dudes he hired to like make it work as math. Like that's what the colorist was, a separator was at that digital era, right?
Right.
Like just a computer technician cat.
So, like we'll move beyond this because obviously this is a dumb conversation if this is where we stop.
We're having fun.
But it is a big problem in my mind because like you have this guy who's kind of obsessed with like alternative comics, not not Marvel DC style, and not that assembly line style, and certainly not Extreme Comics of the early 90s.
Yeah.
You know, so like that's a weird disconnect in this part of like, and you don't explain what image is. The movie doesn't explain what image is, where it's like, oh, it's a bunch of artists that go and get to own their own stuff. Because, okay, I can get back on board. An 18-year-old kid wants to own his own comics. Cool, that'd be cool. That's not mentioned in the movie.
That's true.
You either know what Image Comics is or you don't. And if you do, the movie falls apart. And if you don't, then why is it even in there?
Yeah.
It's a weird bit of movie making.
It's interesting because, like, the director, I was looking the kid up, man, born in 1991. So he doesn't, it's like retroactive nostalgia. It's that Seth kind of nostalgia where, like, you weren't even around, really. Like, you were, like, a little kid. So this is your idea of, like, what these universes were with the Image stuff and with alternative comics. And that's kind of, like, the universe that he's creating is, like, that bifurcation, but just carrying it over. Like, laptop computers exist. It's an old laptop that guy uses to watch movies and stuff like that. So, you know, you don't see a cell phone in the thing. So we don't know, like, the exact time period or whatever.
Wonder if this makes sense if you say, like, this movie's 2001 or 2,
right?
Pre-social media, so
Yeah.
that would be where a lot of connections of this sort would be, where this kid could reach out to Eric Larson or somebody.
All the cars are old.
But before then, yeah. So
all the cars are
if you
90s
said it
cars.
20 years ago, maybe that would help with this piece.
Yeah. Yeah, the kid does zines.
But man, he's in the New York area. You know what I mean? Like, go visit Marvel. Go visit. If Mad Magazine's still being published and DC's still in New York, you know, like, you would go visit these shops, I would hope.
There are these, like, as this stuff that I'm sure you could identify with growing up as a drawer and a lover of comics and maker of comics, where the best advice that, like, your art teacher might have to give, or some adult authority figure, like, who saw that you draw stuff, is like, yeah, go send it to Mad Magazine, and you ain't even thinking about that shit. And then when he's living with those two old dudes, and I think there's an inspiration from Pete Bagg with the roommates, because there was, like, in Hate Comics, there was, like, the nebulous roommate George that you don't know about for a while, and he's in the back, like, making zines and stuff. I think the one character is sort of based off of that dude, but he has Miles over his place. There's a great comedic piece when he brings Miles to the apartment that he shares with the two dudes in the basement, because Miles is like this the whole time. Wow, you have the coolest, this is amazing, it's the biggest building. And they make it a point to make this dude look up a whole bunch at, like, the whole structure. And then it's like, no, we're going subterranean, man.
Closet sized.
Yeah, we're going downstairs. Like, it was palpable. Like, I felt hot, like in that
Very
basement.
uncomfortable.
And the old dudes are so
I don't want to
wet.
visit that basement as, like, a grown man. Like,
Even as a set, I feel like that poor boy with the long hair, like, you can need to get checked for lice.
he should have come out of there with, like, the big hair. It looked like it would have frizzed up in heat.
Yeah, like, I'm saying, you got lice and scabies and crabs and all kinds of shit down there.
Everybody should be checked for everything when they come out of that basement.
So they have this box of comics, and this is going along with the teacher, like, oh, you should work for Mad Magazine. The old dudes are fucking with the comics, and it's the same thing that I remember. Doonesbury, Dick Tracy, like, all the newspaper bullshit that is, like, later for that, man. I'm talking Spawn and junk like this, man. Like that's a moment. Like I felt that moment a lot in my life as like
that's a real moment.
A young maker of stuff. So the name, Wallace talks about the color separation stuff. This kid is inspired. He needs to make money. Like, he sold off his comic collection to get that initial, like, rent money, and goes back to the shop where those comics are.
Kind of works there a little bit.
Yeah.
Little comic shop.
Yeah. Goes through his collection, which isn't moving. Like, the books are not going anywhere.
Yeah, early 90s Image books.
Yeah.
That's a real moment, too. I've had that experience.
So they're still all there, and he's able to look at the indicias. This is where we see straight up Krusty Bunker, fucking Tom Grinberg, Death Watch 2000 or whatever it is, era.
Yes.
Tyvek cover, like,
I wish I would have dug out the comic.
Continuity Studios type comic. It has the indicia that we recognize with it's, but here's the thing, it's kayfabed because it has fake names and shit. But if it's an Image thing, you have that prominent inside cover thing, like
Kayfabe the Image interior cover.
Michelle Fife.
Everybody's done it.
I've done it on my ash cans and
It's
stuff.
in probably 100 issues of Image Comics. Like that is an iconic, easy to find page if you're going to Kayfabe it.
And the color separation name is way bigger.
Or Avengers.
Yeah.
Or my guess for the I wish I would have dug it out just so we could say what comic
when
it is.
They pull it out of the box, it's like there's no comic, like it looks like THB. You know, like, it's not THB, but it's thick. What are you about to do?
This is how this dude reads his comics, by the way. This is a future comic book artist. This is a professional comic book artist, and he's reading his comics like this, like the covers, both covers open in this hand. Who reads comics like this? People at home right now, there are comments about yelling at me for ruining the spine on this comic. This is the kid that's in the. My future is all banked on being in comics. This is how I open up a comic.
Yeah, lift it up, show it to the
kid. Like this. I hold the covers over here, both of them. What are you doing? I'm losing my mind. Natalie's like, why are you watching this? I'm yelling at the screen because this kid's supposed to be handling. Did he ever touch a comic? Did he ever see a comic book before they shot this scene where he's like, how do you open this? Are you supposed to hold the covers over here? Which end is up? I don't know how you read this thing. You know what I'm talking about.
I do, yeah.
What are we watching?
But you do get to see a little piece of that Crazy Man ad where it's like this is
100% Crazy Man.
Yeah, this is a continuity comic, and they call it Image Inc. By the way, like so I guess that's how you don't need permission from Image or some shit. So yes, it is true. The same name is the color separator of Revenger or right. Megalith 2000 from the Death Watch thing. Confronts the dude. Who has to show up for his court, to confer with the public defender, confronts him on the street. Joe Franklin was a name that came up, and I think the director had something to do with a Joe Franklin thing. And I was like, holy fuck, they got Joe Franklin to be in this, and like he's been dead for a long time because it's not Joe Franklin, it's a Joe Franklin looking motherfucker in the Santa Claus outfit.
Right.
And there's comic connections with Joe Franklin because that's Drew Friedman. You know, Drew Friedman used to draw Joe Franklin comics, use him as a character, and got sued for like $3 million from that motherfucker, man.
Really? I didn't know that.
I think they made peace and stuff like that. But like Joe Franklin has a comic connection.
Wow.
And Drew Friedman has a connection to this director kid. So confronts the dude.
While he's talking to
the hobo Santa.
The hobo Santa for like
legal advice.
This kid comes strolling up to talk color theory.
Color separation is just a technical job, and he's like, "Oh, the work that you did."
Yeah, I can see what you're doing with those colors. You're not doing anything. Yeah, that's not his job.
Yeah, you're turning these colors into dots.
Yeah,
so that they could print properly is what he's doing. Impact, he said, like the color separator. You could see that this is the chink in the armor where he's like, I did do something. There is a art component to what I did. I know what I brought to the table with something like that. Never even saw the comic. Takes it off the kid.
He does just take it. He folded up.
Folds it up in like fours and like quarters.
Yeah. So the kid's leaving, and he realizes I can get a ride. Wallace realizes I can get a ride with this kid.
Yeah.
He's like, where are you going, kid? So he goes and hops in the car. And of course, where he wants to go, back to the pharmacy.
Yeah.
To stir up trouble with the pharmacist. And the kid goes along with it. And I can see that. That kid's young and impressionable. I can see him being influenced by the guy who's like, let's go see if we can fix this.
Yeah. And he's still like a Clausian character because like a Enid or somebody. Like an Enid to Steve Buscemi. Mm-hmm. Like this kid is like laughing. Like when this dude's saying shit, he's like laughing at, so it's a, and by the way, the climax is Ghost World's climax. Like when Steve Buscemi flakes out seeing a comic piece made like in its sketchbook and goes to see that Todd character and punches him or whatever. Like that's the climax of this movie. It's the same exact deal. It's a comic about Wallace.
Yeah.
Cart before the horse, man. It doesn't go well at the pharmacy.
It goes awful. This is a relatively short movie, and when I think about some of the stuff, like there's an old lady in a wheelchair that's asking this kid like what to do, right? Like, you're the pharmacist here. I need Percocet. Just give me a Percocet. And she's crying, but it's crying like involuntary. It's like
right, yeah.
Just so disturbing and nightmarish.
Clausian also.
Very Clausian, and culminates this scene of the kid essentially attacking the pharmacist
Yeah.
and running out. So I guess that's his bond. As he gets Wallace back to his place, which looks like, I don't know, man, like a railroad check,
Trash everywhere.
metal door and stuff, and telling him, I'll pay you for an art lesson,
Yeah.
which piques Wallace's attention, and he's down with that. And this is all going to happen at his parents' house on Christmas Day.
Yes, but it wasn't exactly planned that way. Our boy Robert goes back to the crib that he leased out for $350, and when the two old dudes he shared the space with were going through the comics earlier, they pulled out the Tijuana Bibles, and they're looking at that stuff, showing it back and forth, man. When you get back to that apartment, and you hear like a loud thing on like a TV or like the laptop. They don't even have TV; they just watch movies off the laptop. And Robert needs the sound down. He needs to go to sleep. It goes into the room, and you think maybe the old dude's even dead.
Yeah.
Camera pans down, and you don't notice it. See, it's like a quick move, and like the camera doesn't help you. Like I watched the movie 2 times, and like I paused because I'm like, what exactly was going on? One of the Ginger Rogers Tijuana Bible is on his tummy as
Probably sweated to him, like stuck to him.
as the camera pans down, and the fucking head of his cock is out of the waistband.
Like tuck, yeah.
It's the full hard on, and it's like out of his fucking underwears, man. And you hear this like kind of like, and then you hear like an aggressive like verbal as the camera like moves over, and you see the other roommate guy furiously beating his cock. And then I paused on that to see what the comic was, and I'm pretty sure it's a Wallywood. It's a Wallywood like Dorothy and like the lion, the Cowardly Lion, like Wizard of Oz kind of image of I think I've seen it before, like or like a Cinderella or like a Through the Looking Glass bullshit with a rabbit. I think it's like that, but I'm pretty sure it's a Wallywood piece, maybe from Eros, because there's lots of Fantagraphics love. Every comic, like time you see like a good kind of comic setup, you see the Fantagraphics books, you see the Gary Groth magazine with Uncle Gary like getting like some screen time, you know. Gary Groth and like peat bag lettering and shit. So the kid is like sufficiently, that is what got that boy out of the apartment. That was like, you know what, bridge too far, two dudes circle jerking. At my comic collection, I can never touch those comics ever again. There's a piece when
those comics.
There's a piece when he grabs
Tijuana Bible's rare. Good luck replacing that.
There's a place when he's like grabbing all of his shit, and I didn't notice it the first time, but in that fucking nuclear aquarium, a fish jumps out.
He asked him where the fish is early on. He's like, oh, the fish ate the other fish. And then I don't know.
Well, he's like, well, where did that fish go? And he's like, can't talk about it or something.
So disgusting.
But the fish jumps out of that.
Green, opaque water.
With light coming out of it?
Yeah.
That's a good piece, man.
So disgusting.
Cut to, as these type of dudes who you say you've never met, but like,
I'm not saying I never met them.
Don't agree with
I
the
know
character
them,
stuff?
and I'm saying, like, you're not paying $350 and living in this basement with 2 old dudes.
Yeah. I think the kid's a grifter, because he grifts there's a lot of grifting this kid does, man.
Super dismissive, too, because I think we've skipped the scene now where, like, he's really mean to his friend's comics.
Yeah.
Compares them to Bean World, and they do a big Bean World piece on his latest mini comic, which he made 5 copies of.
Right.
That's the.
I know that dude also.
Yeah, I do too. But he starts out and he's like, oh, I never even read Bean World, and then like they go to a second party for a second opinion, an impartial party, another just a kid in the comic shop. That dude also hits the Bean World part. Bean World's never been more widely read than in this comic shop.
No. It doesn't. Bean World is not mentioned till that kid. That second kid is like, this looks kind of like Bean World, and then it becomes a big conversation. It's not.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Just for clarity.
More Bean World conversation in this scene than maybe the history of the world.
And then the boy admits, I need to have diverse influences, man. There's a part that happens earlier where he wants to save his, like, I'm going to say his Harry Lucy Archie comics and stuff. So it's established that he digs cartooning.
You give him a lot of credit. I won't go as far as to say the Archie's he's saving or Harry Lucy's.
They're not, because it's Betty and Veronica.
That's right.
And he says, I'm going to... But like, I know what this director wants. but he needed to hit up the Kayfabe boys for consultation, because we would have took the lettering nib out of the guy's hand. We'll get there, right? Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But we just had to establish that he digs cartooning comics, and so, by the way, I love that kid's comics, like the friend.
The Bean World.
The Bean World guy stuff, like that's art comics. You see that every SPX or like.
Robert's really mean to that dude, though.
He is, yeah, because he's threatened, and that feels inconsistent, like incongruent. Like I don't know people who are like trying to derail one another and stuff like.
Yeah, in my experience, like as soon as I found somebody that made comics, they're my best friend.
100.
Because like I didn't know anybody else on Earth like that.
Yeah, so. 100 for sure. Where are we at, man?
Christmas morning.
Yes. So as these kind of dudes always do, these little rich dudes that go slum it for a little while, just when you thought you were out, they pull you back in. You're going to mama's house. Mm-hmm. Like I have some dude. When we're off cam, man, I'm telling you, man, the most tattooed up, fucked up looking people, and then like we go back and see what the images they're tagged in when they go back home for Christmas.
Sure.
And you could just tell they're the black sheep, and they're doing all that shit on purpose, cosplay. So homeboy is going back home to the $1 million crib. You know, if it's 600,000 here in New York City, where you could get into the city, man, that's $1 million house. That's $2 million house. Going back home, dad's there. Dismisses pops, goes up, gets ready, drinks out the carton in the fridge, makes himself at home. Mom says, "What's up?" Christmas morning time. Make me some pancakes and let's open up presents.
That's what he's there for.
Yeah.
And his buddy's coming.
Well, Mom and Dad don't know that yet,
No.
man. Because first we got to get our Pete Bag.
That's right.
Cameo piece. Open up the Neat Stuff collection, and Mom, being like forward thinking, is like, "I know you like Pete Bag." And right when he said, "I have all the issues," like I said that in real life, like talking about, like I was talking like, "Oh yeah, that came like I have all the issues," and like we said at the exact same time. Like, "Oh man,
he's so ungrateful."
Right.
And that stuff's spot on. That feels like a teenager, not self-aware. I was okay with that, but that's a funny scene to me.
Yeah. Also, what's funny is that like the parents would actually go that distance, because like I got comics for Christmas, but like I spelled it like,
right.
Hook me up with exactly this, and don't deviate from the script.
That mom is trying real hard.
Totally. So he's like, the binding's good. I guess I'll keep it as a backup. And the dad's just like, whatever.
Yeah, his dad's so not into it.
Yeah, his dad's just like, whatever, dude. Ding dong, motherfucker. Ding dong. Friend's coming over. Here comes Wallace. And the parents are like, "Oh, fuck," because, it's Christmas morning, man. You're in your jammies. You got your flannel jammies on and stuff. Mom, man, she don't got the bra on, probably. Doesn't want some fucking weird stranger coming in and shit. But in comes Wallace.
About to clomp his boots onto the carpet.
Ooh.
There's one rule here.
Yes.
Take those shoes off, and he was not prepared for that.
No. Takes off the stuff, man. I think I got the same socks on, by the way, right now, man. Holes and all that stuff. And this guy said, like, he's got, like, a little, he's a compulsive cat. Like, he's taking a shower or at the public defender's office, all that.
Yeah, Wallace is in bad shape.
Yeah, have the breakfast, and this boy, so like that's Steve Buscemi to Enid. Like he's bringing this dude around to like basically make his parents uncomfortable. It seems like, man, it's like he's weaponizing this dude a little bit.
Yeah, and his parents are real quick too, because he's like met him at work.
Yeah.
He works at a public defender's office. They're like, "What's your case?"
Right, like
instantly.
We work at this joint, and then Wallace is like, "Well, she works for me," implying that the public defender is on his, and Mom's is like, "Okay, what's your case?" And that changes the tenor of the conversation, because now it's not just a dude in the office, it's a dude that can't afford an attorney, who's being
in some
represented.
kind of legal trouble.
Yeah. And he's
charged with something.
He's a brutish figure, He's a tall guy, got to be about 250.
Yeah, loud.
Yeah,
it's awkward for sure. Robert gets called away. Is that whenever his buddy Miles shows up? He leaves the room for something. I can't remember what for. And when he comes back, things are just like fever pitched, right? Like they keep grilling Wallace, and Wallace runs away. Is that right? When Robert comes back, Wallace is gone?
Yeah, and that's when he's like in the bathroom.
Right.
Yeah. There's two situations where Robert has to split, and the conversation changes, and then splits again. I kind of forget that part, but Wallace is barricading himself.
Yeah, and I'm mostly good with all this. I have no real movie crit for any of this stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Wallace obviously uncomfortable. Good. You sort of get these everybody's uncomfortable now.
Yeah.
So that all works, I think. I think that's good stuff. I would say, unless you've got something here, and some funny stuff in the whole bathroom scenes, but eventually we cut to, we're going to the bedroom, we're going to Robert's bedroom, we're going to have our art lesson.
Yes.
And so back to the comic stuff. And Wallace pulls out penciled pages. Unclear whether they're vintage from back in the day or new stuff he's working on, but penciled. And so he's going to do a demo, I guess, on inking, but that quickly falls apart. He just can't do it. So instead, let's let Robert ink it, and they'll kind of, whatever wisdom he's got to share, maybe he'll talk him through it.
Yeah, so should we pull apart a little bit of the technicals on this stuff? So we did an episode. We shot an episode earlier today, man. Where we were looking at our teenage Extreme Studio submissions, like literally the image stuff. We didn't crinkle it.
No.
Like this dude is like unfolding 2-3 times, like it's a triptych from AAA.
And good luck inking over a fold in a page. That's a recipe for disaster.
For sure. I think before Miles comes over 2 times, and the first time, like Wallace is like chilling on the bed, and it's like, where are your superhero things? And that's when Miles is like Wallace says something like, you just got all this like animal stuff. I just don't get this animal stuff. Where are your superhero things? And that's where Miles is like, you don't like, some of that funny animal stuff is really good. Pogo.
The ducks.
And he's like, Pogo, and they're like, the ducks. And he's like, the ducks. and then the guy who says the duck, Miles is pretentious because he's like, Mrs. Duck and Daisy Duck, and like, those ain't the first names to come to mind when you're looking at Carl Barks comics.
Not at all.
Mrs. Duck? What the fuck is Grandma Duck? He said something? No. Yeah. Those ain't the ones you say. And then Wallace says his piece about those were for 10-year-olds in the 50s. And Robert, who's just so malleable to his mentors and shit, it's like, oh yeah, I've been off that stuff since I was 15. And he's like, Wallace is like, even 15 is too old for that bullshit. Only pedophiles read those comics.
Does he say that?
He says, the only adults read that shit are pedophiles, he says.
That's funny.
All right, so we have our inking demo. It's a C inking nib with the flat, dull edge, and Wallace is telling him how to feather, and it's fun watching his hand.
There are probably comics that you could ink with that. Not 90s era Rob Liefeld style comics.
Yeah, and you see him trying to feather with it, and you see that shitty feathering would be anybody with a C dull flat nib. Think about like
big round tip on the end of that
just
pen.
Flat. It's almost like, imagine like if a nickel or a dime was just fully flat and you had like a stick on it, because it's just a flat thing and you're going to feather with that. It's like, that's the simplest thing. But I actually I have a theory about why that was the pen nib used, because this is just actors, right? And like the 102 is pulling motions, and you have to rethink your whole approach. Like you've always drawn with pens like this as a kid. But like with the 102, it's all pulling, and you have to change it, and you have to keep pulling, and like it's muscle memory. And these guys just need this information for like a day of like shooting. So like they need to be able to go like this because they're fucking flicking ink everywhere, and it's the only way to like pretend like you know how to use a dip. But it's a C lettering nib. You don't ink with those things, man.
Right. And Wallace is getting sort of agitated.
And it's like, you do it.
And then Miles shows back up with his originals, so you can see all the detail.
Yeah.
And Robert's like drawing like a face in the abs of this drawing.
It looks like Josh Bayer's type, because there's like a face and like the feathering around it is.
He's doing some move too where he's like dragging the ink around, where it's just like this pool of like thick lines of ink. I'd be mad too. He ruined those pages.
Totally. And the argument is that he's fucking around in an area where he's going to spot blacks.
Yeah, it's going to be filled in black.
Yeah.
That's kind of reasonable.
And I do that. You can look at my originals and see weird
tips
stuff.
and stuff, make sure the pen's doing what you want it to do. I do that.
Yeah, or just even in the margins and stuff like so I get that, but like that's not a place where you would do that on the abs. Like there's nothing to black out there really.
No, and also not on like someone else's pages
Definitely
that you're like trying
not.
to make something
Impress
good.
and stuff.
And Wallace is implying like, hey man, if this works out, I know some people.
I have connections. It's been a couple years. I have connections.
Yeah, unclear how many, but at least a few years since he's been in the heart of the color separation game.
Yes.
But he thinks if these pages are magic, they've got a future.
Yes.
The guy is nuts, Wallace. Like certifiable, like dangerous to be in a room with this guy, especially with art with sharp pen nibs.
Yeah, yes, sir. Wallace catches a glimpse, man, of these pencils that he preserved for a long time. He does say something like, Diddy's long like so and so. Well, when he's doing the ink demo for Robert, he has that line. Like one of the pieces he shows, it's definitely Rob Liefeld Hawk and Dove piece. Okay. That he's like traced off or something like that. But when he's showing the feathering, he's like, you want to capture the Liefeld line? That's the gold standard. Mm-hmm. And the boy's like, it is? Like, that's literally in there for comic people. That's in there for comic heads. Wallace finally sees like that what this Robert kid is doing to his piece. These vintage pencils that are 2-3 decades old, whatever.
Scott Williams, if you were going to make that line accurate, would be the gold standard for inking of the early 90s image era, right?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, we could agree on that, no doubt, man. When Wallace sees these inks, though, and that little face that's drawn on the torso of one of his dudes, ballistic.
Yeah, and that's happening while Miles is asking him about craft versus soul.
Yes, it's a James Cachow. It's a TCJ letters columns, dude.
Yes, it is. And maybe if you frame this movie as based on the letters of Blood and Thunder,
yes,
I might be more on board. But they're yelling back and forth, Wallace and Miles, while Robert's sitting in the drawing table in between them, drawing a face in this like Rob Liefeld-esque kind of page of Action Comics, and he's like, well, yeah, craft is important, but I mean, isn't the soul is what matters? And just keeps yelling it, and Wallace is melting down.
Yeah.
He's like, stop saying that.
None of us in this room are an artist. I'm not an artist. He's not an artist. You're definitely not an artist. And did you just know, like, I was in a car from the airport getting picked up in Seattle, and you know how, like, they'll try to get a couple people that are guests at Emerald City or whatever we were at, man. So it was...
I was in there with Aaron Gray when I did Emerald City. That was my...
I was in there with a monthly fucking Marvel cat who was like, hey, who are you, man? And I'm like, my publisher is in this town, Seattle. Yeah, what's your publisher? Fantagraphics. Never heard of them. You know what I mean? Never heard of them. So that's the word. They caught that shit.
Yes.
In that way, because Wallace would say that he would say that to Gary Panter. Mm-hmm. Like I could totally see some fucking studio dude from Wildstorm or Extreme Studios looking at Gary Panter's Jimbo comics, and saying, you are not an artist. Absolutely.
That is a funny line.
Yeah.
I'm not an artist, you're not an artist.
And you're definitely not an artist, man.
That's good stuff.
Yes. So then it becomes, they start fighting a little bit, man, back and forth, because this boy with the glasses is all about his Blood and Thunder. Wallace wants another look at good old Miles' pages. I don't remember quite if Miles just hands him over in that spirited conversation. It probably feels like it would be a mistake, because Wallace is too eager to take a look at those pages. Gets a hold of them and starts going to town with that C-nib all over homeboy's shit.
Those are his originals.
Yeah,
he established he went home to get the originals. So the detail
of his Bean World comics. The schmoz goes down.
Yes.
And our boy Robert, it's his bedroom, and he's like, guys, what the hell? Chill out. It gets a little bit more aggressive, and you see the boy get it's a switcheroo. Like, you see the boy get positioned by the window. I'm like, they're gonna push this motherfucker out of a window over fighting about comics? That's amazing. Like, I was like, this dude is dead. You see, when you watch it the first time, you don't know what the hell you're looking for. But on the second time, like, I was paying more attention to the scuffle. And, like, as they're fighting, the boy pulls his own hand back and pops the joint into the head. Hits himself with the Zabu, the original Sheik. You know what I'm saying? The Abdullah the Butcher.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out right now in my head, well, you got a C-nib. Maybe it just glances off.
Right. Yeah. It ain't the 102.
Be happy it's not a 102 aiming at your head.
Yeah, because that will stick into skull, for sure. And it's that thin metal at the tip. Like, that's going to need sutures and shit.
Yeah, it'd probably even break off. Now you got a little piece of metal lodged in there.
Yeah, but the problem with the C-nib is if it does get in there,
it's big.
It's in there pretty solidly. You hear, the boy goes down. You hear what might be the mom screaming, high-pitched as a motherfucker, freaking out. Cut to Miles on the ground with the nib, with the pen and holder.
Wearing a white suit, by the way.
Yeah, dude.
The Jim Cornette white suit.
Yes, sir. And just like, he does that cry that babies do, where there's silence in between. Like when you take the breath, silence, and then just the most high-pitched wail as the blood comes out.
Squirt some of it.
Dude, mass transit, New Jack. He totally hit an artery with that shit.
He's bleeding a gusher on that white suit on Christmas Day.
Every pump of the heart is a squirt.
Yeah, and at that point, Wallace pretty much makes his break.
Yeah.
I can't remember if he has to wrestle by the dad or whatever to get out.
Runs
he gets
past,
out of the house.
Yeah, because everybody's addressing the triage that needs to take place. They're not really paying attention to the big dude.
Yeah, dude's bleeding out of his head.
Yeah.
So got it. That gets the attention.
Yeah. Put pressure on it, all that. Wallace bounces.
Robert is looking out the window trying to figure out what's going on. Wallace hops in his car.
Robert's car,
runs it through the family garage.
Yeah.
So we get to witness that. And then jumps out on foot. And you know what? Now I'm thinking about the driveway that they're running down. This is $1.5 million probably, this house.
Yeah, there's some property.
There's a couple acres of land there. It's wooded, nice long driveway. Robert takes off after him.
Yes.
Which should be a very one-sided race. This
I think so.
18-year-old kid should have run him down in about 10 steps.
Yeah.
Finally catches up with him kind of at the end of this half-mile driveway, and they engage in a physical showdown.
Yeah. The big dude beats on a kid, man.
Kicks the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Gets him down on the ground, kicks him a couple times when he's down.
Yeah, maybe a little of that energy happened at the Rite Aid, implications of like this might have been what happened. You feel like Robert's such a piece of shit that it's like, catch a fair one to the jaw a little bit. You're an asshole. Wallace says, you have no right to interfere. You're celebrating my failures in life. He sees the comic that Robert drew about him, like in the office.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that sort of made him turn heel. That made him like notice what Robert was doing with ink in the face and all that stuff. And then that set him off. Like that's where he's in the position. You're not an artist. I'm not an artist. Nobody's an artist here. And it's real mean spirit. It's about the guy's mental issues and shit. So it's like all there on Front Street. And then skips off, and then our boy opens up the comic shop. It's like the beginning of Clerks, It's all the moves that go to like open a store, and he's there. No ending to it.
No,
Bad
I enjoyed this recap more than I expected to.
Yeah,
but it does make me mad though. Like, this Robert dude should not be approaching comics this way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad he's not making it into comics. And believe me, he's not making it into comics.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Yeah.
Because he's not serious.
No. It's
You say it's good that Wallace kicks him in the face, and it's like that kind of sums up his attitude about comics. He is so unserious compared to the way he behaves around his parents and his friend Miles. When he's being a dick and he's a teenager, and look, I was terrible as a teenager, I can understand that part. But the lack of seriousness in terms of his craft and profession and comics as an industry, it is like that cosplay wrestler kind of thing where it's like, that guy is not, we're never going to see a comic by Robert.
No, it's the equivalent of when you go to, like, when you check these cats who decide that they're going to start hopping trains and shit to accumulate life experience so that they could do their next Jack Kerouac, you will never see the culmination of all the writing that they're supposed to do.
On the Road 2 isn't coming out anytime soon.
No, sir. So he is a version of that. And I know a million of him. Like, I know that dude. When we are at festivals, that's a version of the dude that's coming up saying, like, how do I copyright my characters?
Right. It's the guy that has a pencil sketch of a pretty generic looking character, but has a whole epic in his head.
Right.
We're not going to see that epic.
Yeah.
And it's not going to get a publisher in the next couple of months.
No.
It feels like you're making fun of comics, making this movie. So that bothers me.
Sure. Yeah,
you know? Like,
totally.
I know, because here's why. Whenever I was a kid, you were a freak if you were into comics. It wasn't cool. There was no future. All my art teachers poo-pooed it, and that's putting it mildly.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was like, this is kind of you're doing this because you're really interested in this as an art form, as a vocation, whatever. But you're serious about it because, like, there's no encouragement. It's not cool. It's not going to get you somewhere.
Yeah.
And it feels like this movie plays up all those stereotypes.
Yeah.
You've got this, like, kid who's treating it like a joke, but acting like it's something special and a calling or whatever. I'm out on those dudes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need them in my life. They never helped with comics in any way whatsoever. And so in a weird way, this propagates all the horrible stereotypes about this stuff, which I'm mostly beyond. I'm not somebody that carries around, hey, when I was a kid, you were a real loser if you were into comics. It's all right. That's not the world now. It's great. Comics are you do comics in a million different ways. There's lots of applications and outlets, and they're in every store and library and schools and whatever. It's great. It's worked out great. But I see this, and it's almost flashbacks to all of the negative stuff that I grew up with around comics that I'm glad we've overcome.
Totally. And that feels like it's a part of that space, man, because I had to even explain, this idea of like Image Comics to indie. It was Image and indie. And even in that world, even in that comic shop, like, there ain't even manga, right? Like, so it's like, it's before that. Like, it really does feel like in that time period. Also, like, when he's sitting there at the end with the credits, and I'm looking at the wall books. Is Silverhawks 1 really a wall book? Like, let me know, man, because I saw it up on the wall, and I got it. I actually pulled it for an episode just because of, like, maybe a nostalgia, like, that'll get an interesting audience bump or something like that. But I'm like, Silverhawks 1. That feels weird to be a wall book. Like, I saw the first Carnage up there.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I might have preferred a documentary about that comic book store.
Yeah. I thought it was Dave Sim playing the fucking, playing the owner. Like, it's not. Like, but there was like a look on his. There was like a in certain lighting. I'm like, is that fucking Dave Sim? It's
wow,
not.
I got to go back and look at it.
Because like there was like a Cerebus thing, so I think that like implanted the idea of Dave Sim in my head at first. But then I'm like, is that fucking Dave Sim? It's like Dave Sim pretending to be Brian Hibbs.
I was trying to figure out that comic shop and if I had ever been in there.
Garage Comics. It's not quite the name. But
there's a shot at the end that I was looking at it, and it reminded me of Escape Pod's comic shop, the layout. And that made me start to think, like, wonder where this is shot. Is this a couple shops? Is it like what are we looking at here specifically? Because you know how these indie movies work, right? Like, they've been filmed in bills in different places and stuff. So it could be any shop that you've been in or is known.
True. There it is. I like how you tie things up, because it felt like it didn't feel like the progress of like where comics has gotten us to this point. It definitely is like a very specific.
And the thing is, like, there are people now who show up at 18 with a good looking comic in their hand.
Yeah.
Do a movie about them, because that's imagine what their high school experience is, because you're not getting to that point without hundreds and thousands of hours spent doing this. So I don't know, maybe we're too close to it, but it does feel like if you're not close to it, I don't know how you would understand this movie at all.
Yeah, sure.
So it's kind of a weird conundrum of like, I don't know, who's this for?
Yeah, man. Well, there it is, dude. Gave it an hour, dude.
That's surprising.
That's almost the length of the movie.
Hey, man, I watched it, so,
Yeah. If this does well, like, there might be a future movie reviews we got to do, dude.
Yeah, what are the other comic book movies? There's the James Robinson wrote and directed that, like, comic book villains, right?
That's true.
It's a comic shop. I don't think I've seen one moment of that.
I did see
what
that.
I used to see, though?
That might be one of my last rents from
Really?
from a movie store.
Do you remember, was Michael Rappaport in that?
I think so, yeah.
Do you remember it being good? I like Michael Rappaport.
I liked it because like I was able to I was able to put analogs to the shop. Like there's an Ides, there's a Copacetic,
Nice.
There's like a Phantom.
That seems fun. Like comic shop culture, I could see that being fun. There was an episode, and I want to say it's like CSI, like one of those kind of shows, but I think it might have been like a couple levels below, where like somebody robs a comic shop, murders somebody, something like that. Maybe based on true events, considering comics history.
Maybe local events, actually, dude.
but I remember like that shit. Sitting in the glass case is Mac Afro.
And what is that?
It's just an indie. It's like a blaxploitation kind of indie comic, but it's a pretty deep indie pool. Like I think maybe the full run of it, but to see that sitting, like it must have been a friend of somebody's or something someone asked for comics to populate this set with. But I remember that standing out on TV. Like I don't think I've even seen an episode of the show in full. But
oh shit! Chasing Amy.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know that was a real fun one too, because that's early days of like seeing comic culture.
And they
screen.
Yeah, they set up like a kayfabe convention, and you see Dave Lapham over here with the Stray Bullets thing, and then you see I think Hart D. Fisher. Like you see the Marvel
that sounds
stuff
right.
on a cop shirt.
That sounds right.
Maybe Hart D. Fisher.
Man, I never even thought of that. That's a good one.
But you know who wouldn't want us to talk about that is like Joe Quesada and the covers that they drew and shit like that. Pretty hardcore. Also, the opening intro of Mallrats has like all Gaijin Studios doing the covers.
It's been so long since I've seen those.
Yeah. It's like here's a Jason Pearson, here's the Adam Hughes, here's the Brian Stelfreeze, Jay Lee. Like it's all those cats. I think Mike Allred does one.
Yeah. I think he does a bunch in Chasing Amy, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's his hand. Bluntman and Chronicle, those covers and shit.
Funny stuff.
Yeah. Anyhow, man, should we get out of here?
Yes.
All right, Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Jimmy, show them what you got.
Hulk Grand Design, Monster Madness. Pick this stuff up now from your local comic shop. Pre-order the Treasury Oversized Edition. It'll be out in January. Street Angel, Deadly Scroll Live, also available in comic shops now from Image Comics, back in print after almost a year. Pick that one up and join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see lots more of my comics and art. You can download out-of-print zines and mini comics, all that good stuff in the links below.
Red Room trigger warnings. Red Room, the antisocial network. These trade paperbacks are in stores as we speak. Each collect 4 issues of my Red Room ongoing kind of series. And you could get all of this material on my Patreon for $3. Plus, I'm serializing new strips every Tuesday, more than 300 pages worth of stuff. Got a link tree in the description below this video where you can order and pre-order current, future Red Room comics. Hit up the Patreon that way. Helps support the work and keep us rocking. What else do we have out there, Jim?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, hats, merchandise, fanny packs, and more at the spread shop link below this video.
Another great way to support the channel, man. Given those marching orders, we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
And if you're going to make movies about them, show some motherfucking respect.